Now that October is getting closer, I realize I've never really done anything special for the month of Halloween. So this year I figured, why not dive into some horror games once it's creepy time. There is some classics that are going down in the next few weeks, but I needed the right game to kick things off. That's when one title I'd never played before caught my eye. Released in 1999 by Crystal Dynamics, a vampiric adventure that is not exactly terrifying, but it does carry a dark, gothic atmosphere that fits the mood perfectly. So sit tight, because today we're playing Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver. A game that is listed as action-adventure, but personally I kinda disagree on that. First couple of hours, I spent more time figuring out what to do next than actually having any action or adventure. It's surprisingly puzzling, in the good way, but it's definitely not generous when it comes to giving you hints to progress. Maybe that's just me. I do know for sure that if 10-year-old me had picked this up back in the day, I probably would have dropped it early and missed out on the whole experience that I'm about to share with you. The game opens up with a cinematic that throws us straight into the Gothic drama. On one side we got Raziel, our bold-cut emo protagonist, and on the other, Kain, the main character from the first game and divine figure that the whole lore of this series revolves around. Raziel, as the narrator, tells us that everyone in that room, himself included, is a creation of Kain, which is why everyone is addressed as a brother. Everything is going well until everything starts going wrong. Raziel's wing starts to develop, signaling vampire evolution, which you will think it's a good thing, right? But Kain doesn't see it that way. Instead of handing out congratulations, he rips Raziel's wings off on the spot. Next thing we know, Raziel's so-called brothers drag his broken body to the Lake of the Dead, an endless vortex of water that's basically a vampire's worst nightmare. They toss him in like garbage, leaving him to rot for eternity. Except, not really, because come on, the game just started. Raziel is resurrected as a wraith. Turns out even vampires get an afterlife. But this isn't just a random chance. He is revived by something far greater, the Elder God. Imagine a cosmic being with a voice that sounds like it should be narrating a nature documentary. The Elder God explains that Raziel was chosen, that he is worthy, and his new mission is to wipe out Kain and the rest of his kin, and restore balance to the land of Nosgoth, which Kain's rule has completely corrupted. Raziel's not thrilled, he's been betrayed, tortured and tossed into an abyss, and now he's walking around in a body that looks like it's been rotting for centuries. But choice isn't really on the menu. The Elder God tells him to channel all that hatred, all that pain, and use it as a fuel for the job ahead of him. And finally, we get to control Raziel, our ex-vampire turned wraith. Right away, the game is impressive. The visuals, the depth of control, the sheer design of the areas. It all makes you want to explore every single corner. This game definitely had the PS1 cooling fun working overtime. The Elder God pops in here and there to guide us, because Raziel has never lived as a wraith, and we've never played this game before. He teaches us about the gates that act as checkpoints and fast travel points, mostly so we can revisit unfinished business later on. He also explains that Raziel needs to consume souls to keep his strength up, basically our health bar. By holding circle, Raziel will absorb the last breath of a poor soul. Mobility is another highlight. Raziel can jump insanely high, and even though his wings were shredded in life, their remnants let him glide across huge gaps. Every space in this game feels absurdly large, so it's something needed. Along the way, we meet the scavengers of the underworld, soul-eating creatures that look terrifying, but are basically the lowest of the lows. Fighting them introduces to combat. With square, Raziel claws enemies with combos. What is impressive here is the fact that there is a targeting and dodging system. Impressive for a game developed before I was born. Very useful in more than one enemy scenarios. And this is where this game gets very interesting. Up until now, we've been in the spectral world, not the real one. Morgan Freeman explains that blue portals and enough consumed souls let us shift back into the physical world. Just hit select, cast the spell, and now you're among the living.
I don't know what I'm doing.
But our presence is fragile, taking too much damage or falling into water, and we're sent back to the spectral plane. Combat against vampires is where Soul Reaver really stands out. The vampire clans of Nosgoth can't just be killed like normal enemies. They are immortal, which means you only get 4 ways to finish them off. Throw them into water, easy, they burn. Throw them into fire, easy, they burn. Impale them through the chest like a classic movie, or throw them into sunlight, easy, they burn. First 2 fletchings took me a while to figure it out. One I burned, the other one I jab his face until groggy, and with triangle you can carry this beast and do as you please. he went the water out. Every landmark we visit is new for us, but not for Raziel. Each time we arrive somewhere, he will usually comment on what used to happen there when he was alive, often pointing out how lifeless it looks now. We even make it to the Lake of the Dead, the very place where he was thrown to his demise. At this point, the game's goal is simple: kill all your brothers and then your creator. But for some reason, that objective easily slips your mind, at least for me. I only remember it whenever I stumble across one of the brothers, and that's because the journey between them is packed with puzzles and unclear paths. Wow, these puzzles are so... yeah, they're simple, but look, they're easy to miss. The first brother we're set to face is Melkaya, but just finding the way to him felt like a battle in itself. The puzzles are simple, yet complex at the same time. In the physical world, you can move objects to place them where they belong, unlocking doors and passageways. But sometimes there is nothing to move at all, and that's your cue to shift into the spectral world, where physical things cannot be moved, but platforms are warped and reshaped, creating new ways forward. Once you reach your destination, a blue portal is usually waiting so you can return to the real world. From here, I can tell you it's a very fun and original mechanic. While playing it, I felt really lost. This is just one of the many things that took me a while to get a grasp on. For example, there is a lot of weapons hidden around the room, spears, tubes, torches that can be used to impel enemies, making your life easier if you take your time to scope around. Running and running, puzzles and puzzles all the way to our first brother who's about to meet the afterlife. This looks like boss fight. Malkaya, a gruesome looking creature hidden in an underground lair that feels more like a torture chamber. If my face looked like this, I will say underground too. When Raziel first meets him, he doesn't even recognize his brother at first. Malkaya's vampiric evolution twisted him into something unrecognizable. Recognition only comes once they speak, but not good things are said in this family reunion, so boss fight is on. Naive me took about 10 minutes to figure out how to defeat this abomination. Based on the game's nature, I knew that regular combat would not cut it, so I searched the whole room for answers. Turns out there is several side rooms behind spiked gates, which you can access by squeezing through the gaps above. Inside, there are levers that open those gates just long enough to close them on Melkaya as he passes through. Bloody, brutal, but still not enough to finish him off. The real key was in the center. A massive grinder was suspended above a cage. Since one of Melkaya's powers is phasing through solid objects, luring him into the center was easy. Once he faced inside, I pulled the lever and the grinder did the rest. Ground Beef, Brothers Edition. His soul was released, only to be consumed by Raziel, the Soul Reaver. From Melkaya, we gain his phasing ability, allowing us to pass through certain gates in the spectral realm that were previously impossible. Again, this game has a very distinctive way for you to progress, and I'm all for it. Now we're able to go in. There's almost no gate we can't cross. And this is good, because it opens the way for collectibles, usually concealed in very tight spots that are easy to miss. Both for the exploring and for the sheer odyssey you go through just to grab a single hidden item. On top of that, they grant upgrades, usually expanding your health bar or giving you new powers to use in combat. Being completely honest, at this point I had no idea where I was going. I spent hours roaming into every corner of the land, hoping to stumble into the right path. The moment I triggered cinematic, I will literally breathe in satisfaction. Finally, some purpose. Somehow, sneaking into everywhere I could, I managed to find the antagonist of the story, Kain, sitting in some pillars like he's been waiting for us all along. Family reunion doesn't go as planned. This time Raziel actually asks for a little explanation before getting ready to throw hands. Kain unsheaths his funky looking sword that, thanks to Raziel's narration, we know it's called the Soul Reaver, a 1000-year-old blade that's usually the last thing people ever see if Kain is wielding it. Weirdly enough, Kain teleports and fights from a distance, using what I believe is an undodgeable ray of lighting that can kill you on the spot. In our case, we're just sent back to the spectral world, so after feeding on some souls, we can take another shot at him. The trick is, while he's charging that beam from afar, he's wide open, leaving him vulnerable for a quick combo of screechy scratches. After some action, Raziel is about to be executed by the very Soul Reaver, only for the sword to shatter like it was made out of copper. Kain teleports away, clearly disappointed that he couldn't finish the job. Somehow, the essence of the sword remains in place, and now it is consumed by Raziel. The one and only Morgan Freeman intervenes to explain that the Soul Reaver and the Reaver of Souls, meaning us, are now bound together. Since the sword broke, for very inconvenient plot reasons, it returned to its original plane, the spectral realm, where Raziel freely exists. Then, this ghostly lady called Ariel shows up to offer guidance, which I totally didn't pay much attention to. My bad. I was way too focused on the fact that I now own a sword, and not just any sword. The game instantly becomes way more fun with this thing in hand. It's by far your best weapon, and as long as you have full energy, it's always present. And it sounds like this. Wong, wong. From here onwards, the game becomes a tale of Indiana Jones turned goth. I spent the next couple of hours exploring places I haven't been before, trying to figure out the right path forward. You know you're going the right way when you start running into puzzles, and more puzzles. I swear I could make an hour-long montage of me fitting cubes into their respective holes. I haven't felt this naive and innocent since back in kindergarten. I also want to know what was the creative process behind creating the more complex set of puzzles, and I'm not talking about the basic lever pulls or block pushes. I mean the ones where you go into one of the 7 doors, spin a crank, hit 2 bells in the right order, complete an art mural on the wall, open steam bubbles, balance the pressure just right to make them sound in a certain way. All of this just to break 4 crystals that were protecting pressure plates, which then need to be rotated in the right order, so some giant industrial fan kicks on, allowing us to glide upwards. Like, I'm not even ashamed to admit that this is a game that required me to get help from a guide. And I believe that without it, I probably would have spent nearly triple the time that it took me to beat. But all of that led to our next family member to make peace with, Stefan, the turned into insect vampire. That is by far the most ugly thing in this whole game. Looks even satanic if you ask me. Arachnophobes, do skip this part because the guy even has spider legs. The fight itself is great though. Stefan has so many different ways to attack you that you just can't focus on one thing. Luckily, his legs are his weakness. After dodging, a single strike from the Soul Reaver allows you to bring down one of his limbs. For some reason, this triggers something to come out of his womb. Whatever this is, whatever that is. Don't ask me, I don't know, I prefer to keep it that way. This piece of meat, let's call it that, we can steal, and with some fire that is conveniently placed on the room, we now have an incendiary piece of meat that by logic is bound to do a lot of damage to this insect from hell. We repeat the process a couple of times and he goes down. Arachnophobes, you can open your eyes. From consuming the soul of our deceased arthropod brother, we gain the powers of his claws. And what I mean by that is that we are now able to escalate in places with no fear of falling. The same way as the facing power, opening up access to newer and older places. Since I was following a guide, the fruits of my exploration were greatly increased. It also meant I ended up finding every single secret. This game has every kind of puzzle imaginable, and it really makes me wonder what type of coffee these guys were drinking in the office. I want to say I spent probably 4 hours looking for every collectible and upgrade for Raziel, and I'm like 50-50 on how I feel about it. But it does make me wonder, how long will it actually take to get the 100% of this game on a blind playthrough? But overall, great game so far. On the hunt for my next family member to dismember, I started running into a ton of water. Remember, in the material world, Raziel can't touch water or he will be sent straight back to the spectral plane. That made this section extremely tricky, and with this much H2O around, I couldn't help but suspect that our next brother's powers were going to be water related. And sure enough, Rahab, the vampire turned into mermaid or whatever that type of sushi is, a brother that adapted to water. The fish was expecting us, but not only that, Kain warned that he was getting destroyed by us, which I find very funny. This fight could potentially get creepy very fast. I'm not afraid of water, but having something huge swimming beneath you that you can quite track with your eyes, that's nightmare fuel. The thing is, the fight itself isn't all that. Rahab just sits there spitting at you while you hop around on platforms. You cannot even hit him directly. The trick is to use the sunlight. The cathedral windows in the room can be shattered to cook him alive. And yes, I forgot to mention we gained this power from beating a Minotaur not long ago. Now our lightsaber is also a Star Wars blaster. From Rahab we absorb his water immunity. Raziel hits this insanely cool pose. I don't even like the word aura, but if something is, this is. And now we can physically explore the underwater in any chance we can, without the fear of going to the spectral. Puzzles. No joke, at this point I believe I have closer to the 90% mark. We arrived at the city, where the brother Duma lives. On arrival, we learned that the vampires and fledglings on this side have suffered several casualties, causing the disbanding of the vampires clans on this city. Thanks to Morgan Freeman, we learned that the attacker side were humans. Yeah, there is humans on this game, usually very weak or scared of Raziel. This city felt empty, almost devoid of vampiric presence. What we did find was a massive furnace still working, one lever for gas, another for fire, and right in the middle, a perfect place to cook a well-done steak. Deeper inside, my questions kept filling up, but eventually we reached the throne room. There, Duma awaited, or more accurately, his corpse did. He was impaled by giant stakes. He looked long gone. but if you enter the spectral plane near his body, you will find his spirit waiting. After a short conversation, things turn violent, and we return to the material world to pull the stakes out. Suddenly, Dumas, the strongest of the brothers, is stronger even than Kain, according to himself, returns to life, and I believe him, because there is no physical attack that will hurt him. He will even punch the ground, causing an earthquake so he cannot escape. He's very silly looking though. Now, this is a terrible design fight. It's not epic, it doesn't make sense, nothing is explained, and he cannot be harmed. The way to defeat him, I found out to be, is to lure him 3.5 miles away back to the huge furnace we came across when we first entered the city. This is so dumb that you even have to make sure that he's following you because he can get lost. He sits in the middle of the toaster, and that's it for the strongest of the vampires. From this man, we acquired the power of changing the direction of immovable objects. If you lap around something, the object will rotate the same way you did. Important? Meh. Felt like a dull power-up, and the way they gave significance to it is by making every puzzle to need it. Facing, escalating, swimming, and playing musical chairs around objects. What once was a brittle presence now is the ultimate hunter and explorer. Nathan Drake will be envious of how many adventure Raziel gets. It's been fun, but the show has to come to an end. One more man has to go down. Our path led us to the Oracle's Cave, the place where Kain's story began. This was one of my favorite sections. The puzzles were tough, but intuitive enough that I finally dropped the guide and just enjoy figuring out things by myself. Some blocks here, some hieroglyphics on the wall, even some color combinations. I knew my studies were not in vain. Deeper inside, Raziel begins experiencing strange visions through portals, alternate realities, prophecies. Was Kain planning this all from the start? So many questions, so little answers. Eventually, we're out of the Chronoplast chamber, Kain's time control layer. Here, he admits he knows the past, present, and future, and he has been manipulating events all along. Many philosophical phrases are thrown around. Time is an illusion, free will doesn't exist, we are predestined, yada yada. Raziel is tired of this man's enigmatic doings, and I'm tired of puzzles, so round 2 is on. The final fight against Kain plays much like the first. The man teleports to safe distances, where he can hit us with his rate, but now we're quite resistant to it. If we're fast enough, we can hit him, but now every time we damage Kain, he will start activating a mysterious levers that look like clocks. Seems like something is getting activated. Kain gets defeated by Raziel in a very anticlimactic way, I have to say, but he manages to activate his time machine and escape while laughing like a very evil villain. Raziel tries to follow, but the Elder God warns him. If you go through that portal, you will be beyond my reach. Raziel doesn't hesitate and steps in anyway. On the other side, he finds himself in a mysterious room marked with an infinite symbol on the ground. A hooded figure appears, calling Raziel powerful, but also a mere pawn. This figure turns out to be no other than Moebius, the legendary time-wielding vampire who welcomes Raziel to his so-called destiny. The plot thickens. We started as Twilight and we're finishing as Back to the Future. The screen fades to black and the credits start rolling. Absolute great game that overcomplicates things for the casual player. Never heard of it until not long ago, so I will consider it a hidden gem. Now, I know this game has remakes released last year, and there is direct sequels to what we just played. I'm a lover of deep complex stories like this one, so now my interest is piqued. Soon enough, we will start integrating into this franchise as a whole. This whole run took me around 10 hours to beat, and it was for the 100%. I'm really curious about what other players' opinion on this game is, so let me know. But for now, we're done. That is about all Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver has to offer. If you liked the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. It helps me out a lot and might help others find the video too. Reminder that you can follow me in my other socials, where you can tell me what's your favorite type of jelly. If you don't want to miss the full walkthrough, make sure to join the live streams. I play a couple times a week. Thank you for watching the video until this part. My name is Yourselves, and with nothing else to say, good night.
Mulher. Na sequência do trepa-trepa que ela fica muito louca. Quer dar uma rebolada, quer dar beijo na boca. Toca, toca, toca,